Hello, welcome to Riverside Public Library's summer reading program, Reading Colors Your World adult program. I'm Marlene, and today I will be demonstrating how to make a chocolate-dipped caramel apple. First, wash your apples. I like to wash in warm water. Remember to remove all stems and stickers. Dry the apples thoroughly before dipping. I like to use Granny Smith apples because the tartness of this apple really complements the sweetness of the caramel and the chocolate. Insert your apple sticks or popsicle sticks about halfway through the apple. I just gently give it about 4 taps. If you happen to tap too hard and it goes all the way through, that's okay. You can kind of pull the stick up just a little bit gently. I use caramel in a 5-pound block. This can be purchased at any cake or candy or baking supply store. Whatever you're melting your caramel in, remember it is deep enough to dip your apple later on. You can also add more caramel if you wish. Once it begins melting, you'll have more space in your container. I like to use plastic food-safe containers to microwave in. Glass tends to get really hot, and you don't want to risk burning anything. I microwave on high for 1 minute. You can tell it's softening up. You don't want to stir it too much because you don't want to create a lot of bubbles. So that way when you dip your apples, it'll be nice and smooth. You can see it's really getting soft there. Once you stir your caramel, just kind of gently go from the edge to the middle, kind of like folding it and not really stirring too rapidly. That way you don't have too many bubbles. This could still use a few more minutes. If you have a candy thermometer, you can heat it up to the temperature of 170 degrees. And that will give it a nice thin coat of caramel. If you like thicker caramel, you don't have to heat it as high. Dip your apple in. You can go all the way to the top touching the stick, or you can just leave a little space. Shake off the excess. And then I like to wipe a little bit off, kind of about 1/3 or 1/4 up the apple. That way when it's setting and cooling, it doesn't create a big puddle of caramel at the bottom of the apple. So just tapping off the excess. And then wiping 1/4 to 1/3 of the way up. And then let them cool completely. I don't really put them in the refrigerator to cool because I don't like to risk condensation on the apple when I'm going to dip in the chocolate. And see, this way they're cooling and not too much is puddling at the bottom. There's a bubble there, but that's okay. If you're going to put toppings, it'll be hidden. So melt your chocolate for 40 seconds. You can microwave on high. Stir thoroughly between every 40 seconds. I like to use a plastic container to melt my chocolate. Glass tends to get really hot and I don't want to burn my hands or the chocolate. If the chocolate gets too hot, it can burn, it will harden, and it won't be good for dipping. Also, remember to keep any moisture away from your chocolate. You can feel the chocolate is softening here. You can purchase melting chocolates at any cake or candy or baking supply store. Once the chocolate is at this consistency, stir thoroughly. This may need just one more 40-second interval. Now we're ready to dip. You can rest your apple on the edge of the container and give it a twirl, tapping any of the excess chocolate off. I like to use a silicone mat because the apples will not stick. If you see any bubbles, you can get a toothpick or something like that, pointy, and pop the bubbles. Although if you're going to put a topping on it, you don't really have to worry about that. So you just give it a little twirl. I like to make sure all the caramel is covered. You can go all the way up to the stick if you like to. Just tapping off excess. You can give it a little twirl on the mat to get more of the excess chocolate off. Here I'm using breakfast cereal as a topping. You can kind of tell when your apple is ready to be dipped. You don't want to dip it immediately after you dip it in the chocolate, because the chocolate is still a little too warm and your toppings will just run off. So at the top of the apple, you'll see it starting to get a little matte finish when it's cooling enough to dip in your topping. And then just press it in gently. You can use nuts, cookies, anything. Just tapping off the excess. You can also wipe the bottom a little bit on the edge too. This one's ready for dipping. I like to shake the toppings up a little bit. That way they're not so compressed. They're a little loose and they'll be easier to stick to the apple. And just lightly press them in. See? and you can cut and eat them at room temperature. Thank you for watching.